All right, should be good. All right, so this is Brian with Heel Hop Rowing here, and I'm here with Andrea of the Mind Body Music Center. I've been really impressed with your work that I've seen online, and I thought it'd be interesting for us to chat. Why don't you just tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a music therapist. I run sound meditation classes in my practice. I also do private sessions for music therapy and sound therapy. I use the harp and singing bowls in my sessions. And right now my focus is mostly around working with people who are needing to manage stress or anxiety, or dealing with just like daily stresses in their life. And I have, professionally, I've been working long-term with people with brain injury, neurologic injury, developmental disabilities. So this is more traditional music therapy populations. And I was trained in neurologic rehabilitation. So that has been my main core of client base. But I've been expanding more into wellness. So my client base has been shifting. And actually, some of the clients that I'm still seeing now that have either brain injury or neurologic injury, I'm integrating these wellness strategies and goals into their sessions too. So.
Okay, and how would you describe the difference between music therapy and sound healing or sound therapy?
So music therapy is a professional field that requires at least 4-year degree program. So there are degrees in the university that you can get degree programs across the world. So you can get a bachelor's, you can get a master's, you can get a PhD in music therapy. I received my master's in music therapy, and many different programs have different focuses. Mine was focused on neurologic music therapy. So music therapy as a field, as a profession, actually has a sort of a variety of focus for different populations. Some people work more in mental health, some people work more with kids with special needs, or with elderly, or with addiction, or in treatment centers for cancer. So there's a lot of different specialties and focuses for music therapy itself. For sound healing and sound therapy, these are practices that have been coming up more recently, where more and more people are really interested in sound's power to heal. So there is not at this time like a university program for sound therapy, for sound healing. There are some training programs. I think there's one in California that's called Global Sound Healing, I believe. There's other small training certificates for sound therapy, but there's not an overall, at least for the US, an overall like a group that is in music therapy. We have the board certification board, so there's not like a board that's for sound therapy that's in the US right now.
Okay, and how about the history of music therapy? I know that it's becoming more popular now. People are looking to it as an alternative for mental issues as well as physical. But how long have people really been using music as a form of healing?
Well, I think people have been using music as a form of healing since the beginning, since the beginning of when humans could make instruments. I mean, if you want to go back that far, I recently saw an article about the oldest flute that was found like 40,000 years old, I believe, but it was tuned to a pentatonic scale. It had 5 holes. They're actually able to play like a replication of the flute. It was made out of bone. It was found in Germany, in these caves in Germany. So they were already tuning their instruments to a scale that we use today. The pentatonic scale is 5 notes, and it's actually really common across cultures. That particular scale is used across cultures. So I think it's there's also some discussion about music being before language, before humans were able to communicate with advanced language system. Music may have predated that. But in terms of music therapy as a field, it started coming up around World War II. After World War II, there were a lot of musicians who were working in the hospitals with vets and people who were coming back and returning after war.
Would you say that music is a natural medicine?
Yes. It doesn't have side effects. It doesn't really have any negative side effects. But it does have a lot of positive effects on us. It can help us relax. It can help create physiological changes, just as pharmaceuticals do. But this doesn't have side effects.
Right. Now, let's talk about, in order to really to get the most out of a sound healing or music therapy, where our mind state has to be. We're not going to really be have the effects of as deep of experience if we're listening to music while driving our car in traffic, running around to work, as we will if we're in your studio, and you're kind of guiding it.
That's a really good point, because when we talk about music, I think, music is so pervasive. It's everywhere. It's in the stores that we shop at. It's on the radio when we're driving. It's everywhere. So I think we take it for granted. And in this way, it becomes sort of background sound. And that isn't going to be as beneficial as when you bring your mind, your awareness to the experience. And so that's part of the process in music therapy and sound meditation, is really being present with the sound experience, being able to connect to the process of listening, how you're listening to sound, and your responses, your own emotional responses, physical responses, to be aware of that. So it's more of a involved, engaged practice in order to receive more benefits. So I think sometimes it's hard in general for people to understand about how to use music, or yes, music makes us feel good, but really we have to come to use it in this way to get the benefits, to get more of those benefits. And so that really takes a therapist actually really helps in the session to know how to apply the sound and how to guide the person. If you're talking about a sound therapy or music therapy individual session, sound meditations also involve engaging and not just passively receiving the sound.
Right. It's almost like meditation, or some type of meditation experience or practice is almost a prerequisite to get the most out of a sound healing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and maybe it doesn't need to, because I have people who come and who don't have meditation practice experience, but it's a beginning to come, and I usually just give them kind of a guide to how to listen, how to be present. So I do verbally talk at first in my sound meditations to sort of get them into that space. It's like priming them to be changed. I really like this idea that attention to sound primes our brain to be changed by sound. So attention is really key,
Hmm.
especially as you start an experience. Attention and awareness.
Got it. Um, I found in particular, you know, instruments like flutes and gongs and bowls, um, chimes and forks, or those sounds and instruments that are usually associated with forms of sound healing.
Mhm.
Um, what is it exactly that makes them particularly useful in the field?
Mhm. A lot of these instruments, the overtones that they produce
Hmm.
are audible overtones and very rich sounds. So the singing bowls, the metal ones, and the gong, they have this bell-like tone. They produce these beautiful overtones, and that is helping the nervous system. That's being processed in our brain. So it gives a more complexity to process. And also the overtone series, without getting too technical, it's basically made of mathematical ratios. So the sound itself, it's structured, it's organized mathematically. This is really beneficial for us to listen to this type of auditory stimulus, that's organized in this way. So those instruments have audible overtones. Uh, what other instruments did you? The flute. The
Yeah,
flute. Mm-hmm.
those seem to be the ones that kind of stand out to me.
Well, and the flute is also one of the first instruments that was made by
Hmm.
humans.
Yeah.
so so I think there's something to that, and also the harp. The harp and the flute are very ancient instruments.
Hmm.
So,
What is your instrument of choice?
well, when I went to school, voice was my main instrument. I love to sing, but I'm doing more playing the harp in my sessions and the singing bowls for both my classes and my sessions. So
Okay.
I love those. And the singing bowls that I'm using, I I got these from, they're called ice singing bowls. They're so amazing. Like there's so many different makers and stuff, but this one,
You think or you're saying there's a difference in quality and sound with
there
the different
is.
manufacturers?
Yeah, and so that's another important point. If you're using instruments as a facilitator, or if you're using instruments at home, you got to make sure you got something like really good quality. Not all of the instruments are made, the same.
Hmm.
So I've always been like really adamant about the instruments that I have, that they're resonant, that they sound good, they have a good timbre and tone.
Okay. Um, I use this term, and you can give me your thoughts on it, called, we already talked about sound medicine or music being medicine. I say like it can also be a toxin. So if we have, a bunch of, if we're surrounded by bad music or bad noise, I think it's bad for our overall health and wellness. An extreme example of this would be, I say death metal.
Mm,
Death metal to me, if I was surrounded by death metal all the time, it would be very bad for my health. Um, what
yeah.
do you, how do you feel about, music being great for us, but also if we're unconscious of what we're surrounded by, being, negative?
Well, there's a couple things about that. So if you're listening to something that has a lot of distortion, noise, or a lot of dissonance,
Hmm.
um, these sounds are not as organized like mathematically. So it's actually the stimulus for our brain. It's not as beneficial because it's not organized in the way that harmony is. So dissonance isn't bad completely. So dissonance is required in order for us to feel a release with harmony.
Okay.
So we have that. Dissonance is something that um, should be in there a little bit, and then it can lead to a release. so we can feel that in the body. But when it's like constant dissonance or constant distortion,
Mm-hmm.
noise, it's not giving the same benefits like neurologically.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that when music is created, the artist has a part in creating the sort of intention that goes into it. Words have a power to them. And so if there's a lot of negativity put into the words, or even a negative state of the artist themselves as they record, I really think that comes through. It translates through to the listener. So it's not something that I don't think that's something that's really been studied that much. Although there are there's some research about words, positive words versus negative words, and like plants or
I've seen the
water.
the rice test,
Yeah, I heard about that. Uh-huh.
the same type of thing. Um, uh,
Yes, definitely. It's not all music, and that's beneficial or therapeutic.
mhm. And I think some people are going to be more sensitive to sounds and sensitive to music than other people. So, if you're more, like if you're the type of person that, can actually, hear the bird, is consciously hearing the birds outside, or hearing the buzz of your refrigerator, um, those little things that most times we just block out, you might be more aware, might have more reaction to the music that you're hearing. Some people, if they're, I don't know, they can listen, some people can listen to the same song over and over again um, their whole lives, while others are going to need constant, variety.
Hmm.
Uh, because I think if you hear the same music over and over again, your sensitivity to what's coming in weakens.
Hmm.
Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. Well, I think also, I mean, it has to do with preferences. We have when you're like talking about music that like recorded music or songs that you start to associate certain times of your life or emotions with.
Mm-hmm.
There is definitely like music is in our brain. So those songs are connected to your emotional centers and memory centers. So when you listen to that, those associations get pulled up. Um, and so there's that at play also for people, um, and preferences in choosing music that helps them. So
Mm-hmm.
just something to consider too.
Um, Another thing that's really interesting to me about this field, and really about this time in general that we're at, is how music is. I mean, spirituality and the sciences, are usually at odds with a lot of different topics, but this is one that both seem very, very interested and both are very, very positive about. Um,
Yeah.
what's your take, being you having experience in the field, about both sides?
Well, that's interesting because there is definitely a scientific aspect of music and what's been studied, like the neuroscience of music, what's happening in the brain when we're listening. And so we know that music is one of the uh, one activities that can recruit areas across the brain, the whole brain. It's not just one area. Like it's not just on the right side of the brain or something. Music's all over. For music playing and for listening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's pulling up, emotional centers are activated. Um, so there's this ability for music to sort of create this whole experience for someone, um, that other things don't do. They, that can't really do that.
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's where it starts to come in to the ability of music to be a spiritual experience, because it's sort of it's processed across the brain. It's activating emotional centers, and music has been used for ritual, for ceremony, cathartic experiences, like in many cultures around the world, and they do that for a reason, because it does sort of bring this whole experience as a human being, of feeling and being in that sort of spiritual state. It can activate a spiritual state of ecstasy too. So it's interesting, because what else does that? What else brings that whole experience?
And I think
so I think that's
I think everybody can agree on that. Also, anybody that's ever, even if you've been to a concert or been to a sound healing thing, or just listening by yourself, can experience the almost a higher state of consciousness that they're unable to get with
yes.
other things.
Well, why is it used? And traditionally in all of these religious spaces and churches and in ceremonies and rituals, why has it been chosen to be used? It really does accentuate this raw human experience. It brings up all of that, and the heart. It just really encompasses us as a human experience, the wholeness of that.
Yeah. Do you notice your clients, the more they come, the deeper they can kind of get into it?
Yeah. Yes. So it's different. It's different for every person, like you said, depending on their experience too, of sort of being able to calm their mind or having some kind of meditation practice experience help. So when people come repetitively, they can sort of be able to get into that space of quieting their mind. I think that's a real important aspect, no matter what is being worked on, either in a session or class or what the focus is. Being able to sort of quiet your mind is like a first step. Making that connection of, okay, my mind's here, my body's here, that sort of mind-body connection is really important in the process. So people get better at it. And then can also listen better. Actually, I've had people say that they could hear more on their third or fourth or fifth class. They notice more in the sound.
Okay. So what I do here is integrate exercise, meditation, and sound all together. And so there's that third component of the movement. And so as they're breathing, listening to the music, which is going to be a blend of more healing sounds like gongs and bowls, chimes, and flutes like we talked about, and then kind of some hip hop, like lo-fi hip hop and jazz beats. So when you mix the two and you add in movement, in your opinion, what is that going to do for the body and maybe like a deeper meditative experience? Like people that get, that you could even, we do rowing here, but running or walking, anytime you add movement into music and meditation, how does that affect them?
Well, it's definitely activating the motor system, so the movement. So you've got an interactive part that's happening now, and being able to move in rhythm to the music. So your brain is activated in a different way. And so that can help to connect more deeply to the music. It seems like that would also help with focus and concentration and sort of getting into the flow states where you're not as distracted from other, habitual thinking. You've seen
That's
that.
that's how I describe it, as trying to reach the flow state where
Mhm.
your body is fluid and your mind is calm at
Yeah,
the same time,
yeah,
and that's kind of the goal. Um,
yeah. That's
and
awesome.
then we use the music to try to help her reach that state.
Yeah, that's great. It's
Mhm.
definitely the music then in that way is making that connection. It's integrating that.
Mhm. Um, And another good thing about doing it with rowing compared to other exercises is that rowing is very basic. It's really just back and forth. And so compared to other exercises, like if you're if you're running, obviously you need your eyes open, you need to be focused on what's around you, or you know um, rowing you can just 100% focus on what you're there to do, which is your breath and more of the meditation. It's
Mhm.
you can still be attentive to the music if you're running, but it's not. I don't think you can pay as close attention because there's still a lot of other things you got to pay attention to.
Hmm. Nice. Well, so what are some of the reports back from the people that experience that? What do they say about?
It's funny. Some of them have um, really. Basically, I think the people that have had the best experiences are the ones that have came back a number of times.
Mhm.
Because they can kind of get used to it. There's so much going on when you're doing something that's brand new. They're trying to learn the rowing motion and they're trying to, you know, uh, focus on the breath. It's just too much. It's kind of like stimulation overload to really get them where I'm trying to get them. But the ones that have gotten there, I guess you could say it's been transformational,
Mhm.
but um, it does take a little bit of dedication.
Mhm.
And what I'm doing by talking to people like you is getting a better understanding myself of what's going on. I mean,
Mhm.
and I know what they're looking for, but if I'm able to explain it better to them about what's really going on in their brains, how these sounds and the music is affecting you and what it's going to help you do with practice, um, it would make me a better teacher, and it also will help them get there faster.
Yeah.
A lot of times people want instant gratification. They want one or two classes and then understand where we're trying to go. But it's gonna it takes time.
Mhm.
But I think that's why I mentioned earlier. It's like I think if in the people if some type of meditation practice beforehand so they can kind of get in the zone, it's going to help them out a lot.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people are meditating, but their bodies aren't right. So if you're meditating, let's multitask here and do a little bit of workout. And you don't have to go. We're not going for speed or distance or power. We're just going for consistency. Just like if you can go the pace of walking if you want. Just slide back and forth. Even a little bit of movement there. The oxygen's flowing. Your blood's flowing. Your joints are relaxing. And I tell people that um, a relaxed mind a relaxed body is easier to operate, and a relaxed mind is easier to control. And
Mhm.
once they're like 20 minutes into a row, and they think, "Oh, we're over 20 minutes," but you're in for 20 minutes, and all of a sudden your body isn't even really straining that much because it's just a really fluid motion. Um, it actually works much better than how it was working when they first sat on the rower.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's like warmed up.
Yeah. So then the music part, that would be important to see how the rhythm is affecting them in their own rhythms.
Yeah.
Uh, because when we were when I was in school, we did research on rehabilitating walking with an auditory stimulus, so like just a constant beat, and
Mhm.
it the rhythm would help the motor neurons to activate. So when there was damage, like someone had a stroke and they could not walk like symmetrically, the rhythm would help them to have symmetry,
Mm-hmm.
and help help the motor neurons to sort of activate in synchrony, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real powerful tool. Rhythm is real powerful for movement.
Yeah, and I've been working more with, there's an application on the screen that says strokes per minute. And so that allows um, more of a synchronization with the music. So, if it's sped up a little bit, you can do like, let's say 20 strokes per minute. And then once, the healing sounds come on, then you can slow it down to about 10 strokes per minute while still keeping their same pace. They'll uh, just drive more the legs and you kind of coast. And then, so you can kind of switch up the rowing speed according to the music.
Cool.
Yeah.
So is it recorded, pre-recorded, or is it the music you're
Yeah,
listening?
there's mostly just playlists.
Mm.
About 30 minutes long.
Mhm.
30 minutes is important because it gives you enough time. Just like when you get your runner's high, you can't just run for 5 minutes and expect to get it. It's
Uh-huh.
it's reaching that meditative state, which lets that runner's high come in. And it's the same thing with the rowing. I mean, people are going to really be, even though they're rowing for 30, they're going to be in that zone for probably the second half. It's
Mhm.
like, a deep 10 to 15-minute meditation.
And do they get to listen to their individual music, so headphones, or
No, it's out of Sonos.
it's like everyone here?
Yeah, and classes are like private and semi-private, so there's only 3 people per class. So it's not like a spin class where you're surrounded by other people.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess where I'm at now is just trying to just get a better feel for the music therapy, and not only where it's been and how powerful and how much it's been used in the past, but where it's going. Because I think that people are starting to look for alternatives for
Mhm.
everything. And
Yeah.
let's look to the past and see what's worked, from the beginning, and now bring it back and kind of integrate it into our, the way we do things now.
Mhm. I definitely think music has this power to reintegrate us. So
Mm-hmm.
because it's reaching us on so many different levels, um, so I think that that's really unique to music, and also with the way that our health system is working now in the U.S., where it's more focused on pharmaceuticals and
Mm-hmm.
drugs to help symptoms of whatever. It's lacking in being able to look at the whole person,
Mm-hmm.
the health in the mind. When we say mental health, it doesn't mean, like, I think maybe it gives this picture that it means that there has to be something like wrong. If you say mental health, then these are issues of, like, bipolar and depression, or but it's not always that. I mean, we all have to be in aware of our own mental health every day, and every week. So I think that's missing
Yeah.
in medicine now. So
Now I call it a supplement for mental health.
yeah.
It won't get you. If you have serious problems, it's not going to get you 100% after while you're listening. But it can just take that edge off, and if you can find out what works best for you,
Mhm.
it can really help you out a lot.
Yeah, well, and there's different levels of using music. So if you're using music as listening or at home use, that's different than if you are in a session with a music therapist. The music therapist will usually be able to cater to that day, to that session for that person's needs. So there's a lot more of deeper work, of course, when you're working with a therapist in session. So there's different levels in which music can be applied.
Let's see. How long have you had your practice?
Since 2005, I moved back to Austin after I went to school. And my cat's rubbing on the computer. So I started working with another music therapist and contracting, but I didn't move out into my own practice until 2007. So however many years that is.
So is it something that you always thought or knew that you were going to do? Like,
music therapy?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, when I was 8, I thought that I wanted to be a famous pianist. So I think music was always in my life. I always felt that it was part of me, actually, because I grew up very introverted, so it was sort of my refuge. So I would play the piano or whatever instruments I could get my hands on, and I would write music, and
So when you say that you use that as a refuge, I think that there's a lot of people that need that refuge, but they don't really know where to start, or they don't look deeper into it, not knowing that if they did maybe they started playing an instrument or started to listen to a particular type of music, it would help them out a lot. But there's really just not enough people out there telling them to do the research, that there's real evidence behind the benefits of what it can do for us.
Yeah, so I think it's well, there's a couple things. I think there's a mentality that music is only for musicians or for performers, in terms of like learning something or our talent. I don't think that that's true. Like anyone can learn. It's just like training. Like you're training people, so you can learn an instrument no matter if you think there's no music skill in your family or whatever. Someone told you can't sing, that everyone can sing.
Right.
Even maybe some sing better than others, but music is we should feel that it's accessible to any of us. And I think in our culture here in the US, it's a little different. And when I've gone and traveled to other places in Mexico or there's this feeling that anyone can play and everyone sings. Even if they're singing a little out of tune, it's totally fine. So the mentality is different. Music is for everyone, more like in other countries. And here, I think it would be great if we could take that mentality. Music is for everyone. You can, if you want to.
And you can just, you can always start small and work at your own pace, as long as you're maybe doing something or learning some more about the instruments or the sounds. You don't.
There's so much benefit when learning an instrument. There's so much benefit because you're actually you're engaging even more of the brain to be able to coordinate. There's the motor aspect, the cognitive aspect, emotional aspect. It's all there when you're playing.
And even the elderly, like they can start later. I mean, your brain's still able to learn new things when you get older. I mean, that would be a great way to keep their minds moving.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it would sort of delay the effects of aging. Because so much whole brain activity and recruitment of the whole brain that definitely would seem like it would delay aging. They've done studies about meditation delaying aging. So I definitely think music would.
They used to always say that diet and exercise delays aging, but we're trying to put music and meditation in there as well.
Mhm. Yes, definitely.
It can be really helpful. All right, so what are you doing now, looking into the future? Seeing some of these trends that are going on. What interests you most about some of the developments in the world of sound healing and music therapy?
For me, I've always had this sort of issue of never wanting to perform myself, because I don't really personally, I don't like to play for entertainment. I mean, I've done that. I've played music as a form of entertainment, but I noticed that when you're playing at gigs and in noisy spaces, it's just background music.
Mm-hmm.
For me, music is so much from the heart. I want it to be an experience where, like, okay, people are there and they're getting the full experience of it. So I am now interested in taking elements of music therapy and performance art, and sound art, and bringing this together so that there is a wider audience to experience the therapeutic effects of music. So right now, I mean, I've been working mostly like with one-on-one with clients, and then in my groups and classes. But I want to also now perform, but not in the way of entertainment, but in integrating these elements of music therapy into what I perform, and meditation. Without necessarily calling it meditation as well, because
Yeah.
um, you know, if people see the word meditation, then I think they get intimidated too sometimes. So,
Very true.
so integrating this together in a sort of performance format, creating listening spaces. I think this is really important. Restorative listening spaces right now, especially here in Austin. A lot of the music venues are set in the bar setting, which is really noisy.
Right.
You can hardly even talk to someone next to you. You have to raise your voice so loud. So my interest is in creating these restorative listening spaces so people can experience the music in a way where the setting itself is going to be appropriate and right to receive the benefits of the sound and music.
Right. I've even thought about just offering a class like that too, where we actually don't even row at all, and you can just sit there, and it's going to be more of like a lesson on listening, than it is a fitness or exercise routine.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you call it? A listening space?
Yeah, restorative listening spaces.
Yeah, I think we might start seeing more of those pop up here in the future.
Mm-hmm. I think they're needed. I think they're needed in every city.
Even just 15, stop in on your way home from work for 15 or 20 minutes, and see what that does for you.
Yeah.
If you're working with someone that, like you, that would really know what they're doing, 15 minutes a day, they would see, and give that a month and then just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. I
but
think it's definitely needed. I mean, with so much of the kind of busyness in our culture, like
mhm.
running. I mean, I hear a lot of people who are doing yoga and trying to integrate these practices that are to help them in their lives, but they're running to yoga class or they're running to like meditation class, and it's like so much. I just think music has such a powerful effect when it's added within a meditative space, and that kind of meditative intention, that it's needed for our lifestyles now, to pause, to listen. So.
Okay. All right. Well, anything else? We're coming up on almost an hour here.
Yeah, I think I was thinking of one other thing. I had a client recently who told me, I was doing a private session with her, and she said she had been for 2 weeks just feeling totally like she had her finger put into a socket. Like she felt so wired and on edge.
Wow.
From some particular event that had happened to her, and she could not get out of that feeling. She said she tried meditation, she tried just sitting, doing meditation, and she said it didn't really help when she came to the session. She said the session helped her the first time in that 2 weeks, where she felt like finally she had unplugged from that socket and like that edge had gone away. So it just created this space for her to clear out all that intense energy that she was feeling. But she had tried meditation. That was the thing I was thinking, is that something about music, something about sound, it really like involuntarily like infiltrates our brain. So in a good way, when we're listening to something that's made to be therapeutic, it can infiltrate in a good way and give us that that we need, that reset.
I think we're all pretty sure that there's no prescription on the market that would have done that for her.
Right. And that's the thing, is that like I feel like a lot of my work too is about the mind, and like you're talking about that too. There's so much around the mind, or we need a medicine for the mind that doesn't have side effects.
For sure. All right. Well, I think that's it. Appreciate you chatting. Learned a lot, and hopefully some of the people that have been following what I've been doing will learn a lot as well. And I'll work to integrate it into what we do here at Heel Hop Rowing.
Great. Well, thanks for inviting me. I enjoyed talking.
We'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah, I'd like to.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.